It begins quietly. The night air was heavy, damp with the smell of decaying leaves and forgotten graves. I had walked this path countless times before, but tonight, something felt different. There was a stillness, unnatural and suffocating. I had heard rumors. Stories whispered by the locals. At midnight, they march. At first, I dismissed them as folklore. Skeletons marching in the dead of night. Ridiculous. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And I was curious. As I approached the old town square, the street lamps flickered once, twice, and then dimmed completely. I stopped, my breath visible in the sudden chill. From the corner of my eye, movement at first, I thought it was a trick of the shadows, the sway of tree branches in the wind. But then I heard it, a sound like bones clattering. Soft at first, distant, then growing louder. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run. But something made me stay. And then I saw them. A single skeleton. Its bones gleaming faintly under the pale moonlight, walking in perfect rhythm across the cobblestone street. Its eye sockets glowed with an unnatural blue light. It paused, tilted its skull as if examining me, and then continued. More followed, a dozen, 2 dozen, hundreds. The skeletons moved with precision, each step perfectly in sync. Their hollow eyes fixed ahead, never wavering. They were a parade, a midnight procession of death, and I was standing directly in its path, my heartbeat hammered in my chest. I wanted to flee, but my legs wouldn't move. The stories, the warnings, I had laughed at them. And now, here they were. Suddenly, one skeleton broke from the line. It advanced toward me, its jaw opening as if to speak. And in that moment, I heard it. A whisper, not in words, but in thought, chilling, omnipresent. Join me. The parade. I stumbled backward, the cobblestones slipping beneath my feet. And then, darkness, asterisk. When I woke, I wasn't where I had fallen. The cold cobblestones were gone, replaced by soft earth beneath my hands. Mist curled around me, thick and suffocating, like the breath of something ancient. The moon hung low and swollen in the sky, casting ghostly silver light across a deserted street. The parade was gone. Or so I thought. A faint rhythm echoed through the fog, soft at first, like distant drumming. Then louder, closer. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding, and caught sight of movement ahead. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, twisting and writhing as if alive. Then I saw them glimpses of bones, fragments of skulls, disappearing and reappearing like reflections in shattered glass. The air smelled of earth and decay, and I realized this wasn't a hallucination. This was real. I backed away, but the rhythm followed. Step, 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 each one synchronized perfectly, an unholy cadence. I tried to call out, but my voice was swallowed by the fog. Then I saw something that made me freeze entirely. A skeleton, taller than the rest, draped in a tattered cloak, carrying a staff tipped with a glowing crystal. Its eye sockets burned brighter than the others, a searing blue that seemed to pierce my very soul. The skeleton raised a bony hand and pointed toward me. I ran. Branches clawed at my face and arms, the fog thickening with every step. But no matter how far I went, I could hear them. The parade, relentless, following, circling, closing in. Then I stumbled upon a doorway, a decrepit building that seemed abandoned for decades. I ducked inside, pressing myself against the wall, hoping they hadn't seen me. Silence. For a moment, I thought I was safe. But then the whispers began. Faint at first, then louder, echoing from every corner of the building. Join. The parade? It was the same voice I had heard before. Not from a skeleton, not from outside, but from inside my mind. The words weren't spoken, they were commanded. My body trembled involuntarily. I stumbled into the main hall, and my eyes fell upon a mural painted on the wall. It was faded, old beyond recognition, but I could make it out. A line of skeletons. Marching beneath the moon, a crowd of terrified townspeople watching, and in the center, a figure, indistinguishable, but unmistakably human. Its eyes glowed blue. A sickening realization hit me. This parade, it wasn't just a legend. It was a ritual. Every year, it claimed someone. And the mural suggested I could be next. A sudden crash from the floor above made me spin around. Shadows shifted in the corners of the room, forming shapes I could barely comprehend. One of them moved toward the staircase, the sound of bones scraping the wood echoing through the hall. I knew then there was only one option. I had to find a way out. I had to escape the skeleton parade before midnight claimed me as one of its own. But as I approached the door, realized the fog outside wasn't natural. It was alive. It pulsed and swirled, shaping itself into skeletal forms. Grinning at me with hollow eye sockets, the parade had found me again, and it would not let me go. Asterisk, asterisk, I ran blindly through the building, my hands scraping against rotting wood and crumbling plaster. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a living fog, echoing in every corner of my mind. Join, join, join. I stumbled into a room that looked like a study, dusty tomes and parchment scattered across the floor. On the desk lay an old journal, bound in cracked leather, yellowed with age. I picked it up with trembling hands, and the moment I opened it, I felt a chill run down my spine, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The journal belonged to a man named Cleus Crowther, a scholar of occult history. He had written about the skeleton parade, describing it in painstaking detail. According to him, the parade was not merely a legend. It was a curse, a cycle of death and rebirth, fueled by those who dared to witness it. He wrote, "They march because they must." The parade is eternal, yet it seeks completion each year. One soul must be claimed, or the rhythm falters, and the night devours all. I swallowed hard, realizing the horrifying implication. The parade didn't just appear, it hunted. And I had been foolish enough to stumble into its path. A sudden noise snapped me out of my thoughts. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, heart hammering, and saw them, the skeletons. Their glowing eyes filled the doorway, and behind them, the fog pressed closer, pulsing with a life of its own. The tallest one, the cloaked figure with the staff, stepped forward. And for the first time, it spoke in a voice that was both hollow and human. "Elias warned you, yet you linger. Now you must choose." I froze. My mind raced. Choose. There was no choice. Not really. The skeleton lifted its staff, and the blue light flared, casting shadows that danced like living nightmares across the walls. Then I saw it, something moving beneath the floorboards. A hand. Pale, human. Another, they emerged from the cracks in the floor, wriggling, clawing, desperate to escape the earth. The parade wasn't just skeletons. It was collecting the dead, raising them, shaping them into its army. And they wanted me next. I ran to the window, prying it open, and jumped into the fog outside. The cold hit me like a slap, but the parade was relentless. Skeletons marched through the mist, their glowing eyes fixed on me. Every step they took reverberated through the street. Shaking the ground beneath my feet, I ran blindly through the mist, my mind screaming for answers, for salvation. And then, I saw something I wasn't prepared for. A crowd of townspeople, their faces pale, eyes vacant, walking silently in the parade. They weren't skeletons yet. Their flesh hung loosely, their movements jerky, as if controlled by the same rhythm that governed the skeletons. I realized with a sinking dread, Witnessing the parade didn't just endanger your life, it began transforming you. First the mind, then the body, until you became part of the eternal march. My chest tightened. The clock was ticking. Midnight was near. And somewhere, deep in the fog, the cloaked skeleton was waiting, watching. Ensuring the parade remained unbroken, a voice whispered from behind me, cold and serpentine. Join or resist. But know this, the parade never forgets. I had to find a way to break the cycle. But in a world ruled by bone and shadow, hope felt like a fragile, flickering candle in a storm. I ran through the fog-choked streets, the echo of the parade's rhythm in my ears. Step, step, step. It was hypnotic, a pulse that seemed to reach into my very bones, urging me to stop, to surrender, to join. Panic clawed at my mind. I needed answers. Somewhere in this cursed town, there had to be a way to escape a loophole. A secret the parade didn't want me to find. That's when I remembered the journal. Elias Crowther had written about the parade's origins and, more importantly, a hidden passage beneath the town square, a place the skeletons never crossed, a thin barrier between the living and the dead. I didn't know if it was true, but I had no other choice. I sprinted toward the square, the mist swirling around me like fingers trying to drag me down. The square was deserted. Almost. Shadows moved along the edges, skeletons gliding just out of the street lamp glow. I could feel their gaze on me, cold and relentless. I found the manhole. It was old, rusted, and engraved with symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly in the moonlight. This was it. Elias's forbidden passage. I lifted the cover with every ounce of strength I had and descended into darkness. The air below was damp and suffocating, thick with the smell of earth and decay. My flashlight barely penetrated the black, revealing walls etched with symbols I didn't understand. And then I heard it, the parade above. The skeletal rhythm, louder now, as if sensing my movement beneath them. I paused, holding my breath, and for a moment, I thought I had evaded them. But then a hand, pale and skeletal, reached through a crack in the manhole. Clawing at the earth, desperate to pull me back. I slammed the cover shut, my heart hammering, and continued through the narrow tunnel. The passage twisted and turned, descending deeper than I imagined. Faint blue light glowed ahead, and I realized I wasn't alone. Figures moved in the shadows, not skeletons yet, but humans like the townspeople I had seen before. Their eyes empty, their movements controlled. They turned toward me, whispering, "Join. Join, join." I forced myself forward, ignoring their calls. The tunnel opened into a chamber, vast and circular, with walls carved from stone. In the center, a pedestal held a crystal, glowing with the same searing blue light I had seen in the cloaked skeleton staff. I instinctively knew this was the heart of the parade. Destroy it, and perhaps the cycle could be broken. But as I stepped closer, the temperature dropped, frost creeping over my skin. Shadows coalesced, forming the cloaked skeleton. Its staff raised, and the crystal pulsed in response, sending waves of hypnotic rhythm through the chamber. "You cannot stop what has marched for centuries," it intoned, its voice echoing like hollow wind through a tomb. "Only one path remains: join or be unmade." My mind raced. I had to act quickly, but every instinct screamed at me to flee. The rhythm in my bones pulsed stronger, like an invisible chain, urging surrender. I knew then that this wasn't just a test of courage, it was a test of will. To survive the parade, I couldn't just run. I had to defy it, to fight the pull of the rhythm itself. And in that moment, a plan began to form. A dangerous, desperate plan. If I failed, I would join the march forever. If I succeeded, I might finally break the curse. The chamber was alive with cold. The crystal's blue glow cast eerie shadows across the walls. Shadows that stretched and writhed as if they had a life of their own. The cloaked skeleton stood between me and the crystal, its hollow gaze fixed on me like a predator sizing up its prey. I could feel it now, the rhythm pulsing through the floor, through the walls, through my very bones. It wasn't just a sound. It was a force, a command. Join. 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 My hands shook as I edged closer to the pedestal. Every step felt like wading through invisible chains, every breath a battle against an unseen current. The skeleton raised its staff, and the blue light flared, making the walls pulse with spectral energy. "You resist," it said, voice hollow, reverberating through the chamber. "Resistance only strengthens the call." Then I saw them shadows along the edges of the chamber. The humans I had passed in the tunnel. Their skin had begun to pale, bones faintly visible beneath, eyes glowing faintly blue. They were caught between life and the parade, trapped in that terrible threshold. And as they looked at me, a single thought pierced through my terror. I cannot become them, with every ounce of will. I lunged for the crystal. The staff slammed down, and a shockwave of bone-chilling energy knocked me back. I hit the stone floor hard, pain searing through my chest. The skeleton's whisper filled my mind directly. Join. I realized then what I had to do. The crystal was feeding the parade, its energy binding the living to the rhythm. If I could destroy it, maybe, just maybe, I could shatter the curse. I picked up a fallen stone, heavier than it looked, and hurled it at the crystal. It struck, and the crystal wavered, pulsing violently, sending tendrils of blue light lashing out in every direction. The cloaked skeleton screeched, not a sound, but a vibration of bone and hollow air that rattled my very soul. The tunnel behind me trembled, and the trapped townspeople cried out, voices joining the chorus of the parade. The rhythm was breaking, a high, piercing note that set my teeth on edge, like glass scraping bone. I hurled the stone again. This time, the crystal cracked, a deep fissure spreading across its glowing surface. Light exploded outward, blinding and intense. I slammed my eyes shut, shielding myself from the brilliance, and when I opened them, the cloaked skeleton was gone. The chamber trembled, then fell silent. The townspeople collapsed to the floor, breathing like they had just awoken from a nightmare. The fog that had crept through the tunnels outside dissipated. Leaving only cold air and silence, I sank to my knees, chest heaving, adrenaline pumping through every nerve. I had done it, at least, I thought I had. Then, a faint sound reached me from outside, a single, hollow, laughing rattle. I froze. The parade was broken for now, but something had survived. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The midnight march might have faltered, but the skeleton parade never truly ends. I stumbled out of the chamber and back into the fog-choked streets. The parade was gone, the skeletal rhythm silenced, yet the night felt wrong, hollow, as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The townspeople, those halfly shadows I had glimpsed earlier, stumbled along the streets. Their eyes, once vacant and glowing blue, now flickered with faint traces of humanity. They murmured among themselves, uncertain, lost, yet alive. I let out a shaky breath, relief flooding me. Maybe it was over. Maybe I had finally stopped the curse. But then I noticed something in the reflection of a broken window. My own eyes, blue, just faint, but unmistakably glowing. Panic surged through me. The rhythm, the parade, had left a mark, a tether. Even though I had shattered the crystal, even though the parade had retreated, a part of it had fused with me. I staggered through the streets, my thoughts racing. Could I warn the others? Could anyone survive this? And most importantly, could I resist it? A cold breeze swept past me, carrying with it the faint rattle of bones. My heart froze. I wasn't alone. The wind carried whispers, low, guttural, bone deep. Join. Soon, join. I spun around, but the street was empty. The fog seemed to pulse around me, moving as if alive. And then I realized it wasn't just outside. It was inside me. The rhythm? I could feel it faintly, like a pulse at the base of my skull, syncing with my heartbeat. I ran. I ran blindly through alleyways and empty streets, desperate to escape the connection. Every footfall felt heavier, as if something inside me was resisting, but also guiding. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the creeping dread, but it persisted. Then I saw her. A figure standing at the far end of the street, tall, thin, draped in tattered black. The faint glow of blue eyes caught mine from beneath her hood. My pulse froze. "You survived," she whispered. Voice human, but layered with something else, something hollow and bone deep. "Few do." Who are you?" I stammered. She stepped closer, shadows twisting around her. "I am the Watcher. The one who guards the balance between the parade and the living. And you." Her eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. "You carry a piece of it now." A chill ran through me. "A piece of what?" "The rhythm," she said simply. "The parade never leaves entirely. It waits dormant in those who have glimpsed its heart. You cannot destroy it, only resist it. And if you fail," she let the words hang. "You march." I felt the weight of her gaze, pressing down, heavy as stone. I nodded, swallowing hard. Resistance. That was all I could do now. But deep down, I knew something terrifying. The parade might have faltered tonight, but the mark was inside me. I could feel it growing stronger with every heartbeat, and as the clock ticked closer to midnight, I realized the horrifying truth. Breaking the crystal didn't end the curse. It had only begun. The skeleton parade wasn't finished with me. Not yet. The Watcher disappeared into the fog as silently as she had appeared, leaving me trembling on the deserted street. My pulse still raced from the encounter, but worse than that was the knowledge she had imparted. The parade wasn't gone. It had marked me, tethered me to its rhythm, and I could feel it lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the moment to pull me back in. I had to know more. If I was going to survive, I needed answers. The truth behind the skeleton parade and why it chose certain people. I returned to the ruins of the old town square, searching for any clues Elias Crowther might have left. That's when I noticed the mural again, partially hidden behind rotting boards. But this time, I saw something I hadn't before. Hidden symbols along the edges. Cryptic markings that resembled runes or sigils. And in the center, not a single human figure, but many faces I recognized. Faces of townspeople, long missing. Some presumed dead. The realization hit me like ice. The parade had been going on for centuries. And each year, it claimed someone. Some became skeletons, others stayed trapped like the half-human figures in the tunnels, doomed to wander on the threshold between life and death. I traced the symbols with my fingers, heart hammering. They seemed to pulse faintly under my touch, as if alive. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, moving through the fog. I turned and froze. It was James, my friend, my neighbor. Someone I had known for years. But his eyes, they glowed faintly blue. His skin looked paler than normal, almost translucent. "James," I whispered, disbelief choking me. He smiled, or at least what resembled a smile. His teeth were sharper than they should have been, and his movements were too precise, too fluid. "You found the truth," he said, voice low and unnatural. "But it doesn't belong to you." "What? What are you?" I asked, backing away. "I'm a survivor," he said. "Like you. But unlike you?" I embraced it. He raised a hand, and I saw the faint shimmer of bones beneath his skin. "You resist, but resistance is futile. The rhythm, it's part of you now, and soon you'll realize there's no choice left." Betrayal coursed through me. James had known all along about the parade, and now he had succumbed. Or worse, he had chosen to join it. I had no time to think. The rhythm surged stronger, pulsing from my chest, reaching out, pulling me toward the parade once more. I stumbled, fighting the invisible force, my legs shaking with the effort. James advanced, each step perfectly synchronized with the rhythm. As if he were a conductor of the invisible symphony. "You can't fight it forever," he said. "Eventually, everyone joins. Everyone becomes part of the march." I realized then that my survival wasn't just about escaping the parade physically. I had to resist it mentally, fight the pull from within, or I would become like him, a hollow puppet in a procession of death. The fog thickened, swirling around us. Shadows stretched unnaturally, forming skeletal shapes in the corners of my vision. The street seemed endless, twisting in impossible angles, trapping me in a labyrinth of bone and mist. And as James stepped closer, a thought struck me. If he had embraced the parade, perhaps he could be used against it. Perhaps the key to survival wasn't running, wasn't hiding, but confronting it. But confronting it meant facing him. Facing a friend who was no longer fully human, and whose allegiance now lay with the skeleton parade. I took a deep breath. My heart pounded. The midnight hour approached, and with it, the inevitable return of the parade. One thing was certain. Tonight, there would be no running. Asterisk, asterisk, the fog thickened around us like a living wall. Every breath I took tasted of damp earth and decay. And the rhythmic echo of bone against stone began again, faint at first. Then louder, insistent. James stood a few feet away. Eyes glowing brighter now, a cruel smirk on his pale face. "It's time," he said. "You can fight it, but you cannot stop it." I clenched my fists, feeling the pulse in my chest. The rhythm was no longer just outside me. It coursed through my veins, syncing with my heartbeat. A silent command I could not fully ignore. From the fog, the parade emerged. Hundreds of skeletons, their eyes glowing in eerie blue, moving in perfect unison. Behind them, faintly, the townspeople I had seen, trapped, half human, half shadow, their vacant stares fixed on me. The ground vibrated with each step, the sound echoing like a drum of doom through the empty streets. My mind screamed for escape, but the labyrinthine streets twisted impossibly, trapping me in a corridor of shadows and bone. James advanced, each step in perfect sync with the skeletons, as if he were part conductor, part predator. "Why do you fight?" he taunted. "You're already part of it." I shook my head, desperation clawing at me. I won't join," I screamed, trying to resist the pull. The skeletons halted. A collective pause that felt like the world itself holding its breath. Then the cloaked figure appeared at the head of the parade, the one I had faced in the underground chamber. Staff raised, glowing blue eyes burning like twin lanterns in the darkness. The air thickened. Every step I had taken, every beat of my heart, now echoed the parade's rhythm. I felt myself trembling, my mind teetering on the edge of surrender. The cloaked skeleton spoke, its voice like grinding bone. "You resist. Admirable, but futile. The march is eternal. One will join. One will fall." James stepped closer, closer than I had ever allowed him to get. He whispered, almost tenderly, "You can save yourself, or you can save them. But you cannot save both." I glanced at the trapped townspeople, their faces pale, their bodies twitching slightly in time with the skeletal rhythm. I realized they were tethered to the same pulse that had invaded me. If I succumbed, they would be lost forever. A spark of determination ignited inside me. I wasn't going to let the parade win. Not tonight. Not ever. I reached deep into a part of myself untouched by the rhythm and focused on the pulse within. I let the fear and the cold seep into my bones, and then I pushed back. Step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat, I forced my own rhythm to clash with theirs. Resisting the invisible chain, the skeletons faltered, the rhythm stuttering. James' eyes widened in shock, the first real expression of doubt I had seen in him since he embraced the parade. You can resist it," he hissed. I nodded, sweat streaming down my face, chest heaving. "I have to." "For all of you," the cloaked skeleton raised its staff higher, light flaring violently, but my pulse held strong. I could feel a strange harmony forming, not theirs, not mine, but something new. A chance, a sliver of hope, but as I prepared to strike the first blow to shatter the control the crystal had over the parade entirely, a shadow moved behind me. Something massive, skeletal, and far older than the parade itself. The real master of this nightmare. And I realized, with a sinking terror, that the hardest part was still ahead. Asterisk, asterisk, the shadow loomed larger than anything I had faced before. It wasn't just one skeleton. It was the essence of the parade itself, taller, darker, a mass of bone and shadow. Eyes glowing a malevolent blue that seemed to pierce through my very soul. The cloaked figure and James both froze, as if the shadow's presence demanded obedience. The air vibrated with the rhythm, louder and more relentless than ever. My heart pounded, syncing involuntarily with the pulse. Step, step, step. I realized then the horrifying truth. The parade wasn't a mindless ritual. It was alive. It was aware. It fed on fear, on hesitation, on the faintest willingness to give in. And tonight, it had chosen me not merely as a participant, but as a key to its continuation. The shadow moved toward me, undulating as though composed of thousands of skeletal fragments. The townspeople trembled, caught in the pull of its presence. And yet, somehow, I still felt the pulse within me. The fragment of free will I had managed to preserve. "You resist," the shadow intoned. A voice not spoken but felt in every nerve of my body. "You cannot stop the march. One will join. One will fall. The rhythm is eternal." James stepped forward again, his face twisted between friend and puppet. "You don't understand," he said. "It doesn't take everyone at once. Only one. And it has chosen you." I swallowed hard, feeling the blue light creeping beneath my skin, the pulse growing stronger, a part of me that wanted to surrender. But I had seen what joining meant: hollow eyes, vacant faces, a slow march into eternity. I couldn't let it claim me. I reached into the depths of the chamber, grasping a shard of crystal fallen from the pedestal. The shard pulsed faintly with blue energy, but unlike the main crystal, it resonated with my rhythm, my will. I held it up, and immediately the shadow recoiled, its form twisting in pain. The skeletons faltered. The townspeople hesitated, and for the first time, I felt power not over them, but over the rhythm itself. I focus, channeling my heartbeat into the shard, forcing my rhythm to clash with theirs. The pulse grew chaotic, a violent battle of wills. The shadow screamed, a sound like grinding stone and cracking bone, and the ground shook beneath my feet. Light exploded from the shard, illuminating the fog, casting the skeletal army into stark relief. Then I saw it. The secret of the parade. Its origin, the original crystal, had been a binding. A vessel created centuries ago by a long-dead sorcerer to control death itself. Every soul the parade had claimed, Every skeleton that marched was tied to that crystal's will. But the shard I held, it was not a vessel of control. It was a vessel of choice. The power to disrupt the rhythm, to sever the connection between the living and the parade. With a surge of courage, I struck the shadow with the shard. Light erupted in every direction. The skeletal forms shrieked, the townspeople stumbled, and the fog dissolved into nothingness. When the light faded, I was alone. The parade was gone. James collapsed beside me, alive but broken, his glowing eyes fading. The fog had lifted, the town silent, for the first time in what felt like eternity. I breathed without fear, but deep in my chest, I felt the faintest pulse. A reminder. A warning. The skeleton parade was not destroyed. Not entirely. It was dormant, waiting, as it always did, and I knew, in the shadows of every future midnight, it might return. The town was silent. The fog had vanished, leaving the streets bathed in pale moonlight. Broken signs, shattered cobblestones, and the faint remnants of blue light were all that testified to the horrors of the night. I sat on the edge of the old fountain in the square, chest heaving, shard still clutched in my hand. James lay nearby, exhausted but alive, his glowing eyes now completely dim. For the first time, I allowed myself a small measure of relief. The parade had retreated, the immediate threat gone. Or so I thought. The watcher's words echoed in my mind. The parade never leaves entirely. It waits, dormant, in those who have glimpsed its heart. You cannot destroy it, only resist it. I realized then the true weight of survival. This was not victory. It was vigilance. Every beat of my heart would now carry a rhythm that the parade could feel, a tether I could never fully sever. I had fought, I had resisted, and yet the risk of joining lingered with every midnight that passed. James stirred, groaning as he sat up. His eyes flicked to me, then to the shard. "It's over," he asked, voice weak. "For now," I replied. "But it's not gone. Not entirely." We walked through the empty streets, the town eerily quiet. The parade had left nothing behind but the memory of its march, the echo of its rhythm, and the haunting sense that it could return at any moment. As dawn approached, the first lights spilled over the horizon, casting long shadows across the square. I felt a strange calm in the sunlight, a fragile peace. The parade could not march in daylight. Not yet, but as I turned to leave, a faint sound reached me. Carried on the morning breeze, a single, hollow clatter of bone. I froze, my heartbeat stuttered. A shiver ran down my spine. Somewhere, just beyond the edge of town, in the deep shadow of the forest, the skeletons stirred. Not yet marching, not yet calling, but awake. Waiting, I clenched the shard tightly. I would resist. I had to resist, and somewhere, deep in the darkness, the pulse of the skeleton parade continued, slow, patient, eternal. The night had ended, but the march never truly ends. I walked away, the shard warm in my hand, the rhythm in my veins, a reminder that survival was only the beginning, because when midnight returns, so will they. And that's a wrap. A huge thank you to everyone for watching. This channel is nothing without this amazing community. If you have ideas for future videos, drop them down in the comments below. As always, subscribe if you're new here. Until next time, take care.